Italian Wine Podcast. Chin Chin with Italian wine people.
Hello, my name is Monty Waldin. This is the Italian Wine Podcast, and today with me is Henry Davar, who is a wine educator based in Las Vegas. Welcome.
Thank you. Pleasure and an honor to be here.
So, what does a wine educator do in Las Vegas, apart from educate people about wine?
It's more about exciting people and getting people talking about wine, getting people comfortable with wine. That's the first step.
Why is that important for you?
For me, it's important because of the staff that we're responsible for, more than training, is keeping exciting about wine and understanding that wine is more than just a transaction. There are many levels of care and livelihood that go into making any given bottle of wine. And for me, most of those livelihoods happen to be Italian, or at least my connection to wine started with Italian wine.
So just describe how your connection began.
It started over a bottle of wine, 2 bottles of wine, Tarazzi in this case, and Amarone.
So Tarazzi is from Basilicata, south of Italy, made with Primitivo, yeah?
Aglianico from
Campania.
Yes, sir.
You can cut that bit out, sorry.
And then Amarone from the Veneto. But both styles of wine, that to my palate at the time, were very, very approachable, and they pushed the right buttons, so to speak.
Okay, so what's your job title?
I'm a wine educator and business development manager. So my role overlaps education for not just our wine sales team, but the community at large, but also as a communications manager, really putting out effective communications and media that gets people at least talking about wine. We work in a large company that sells not just wine, but spirits and beer. And in a town like Las Vegas, driven these days by nightclubs and pool parties, sometimes wine gets lost in the shuffle. We want to bring the conversation back to wine.
So you're a wholesaler, you're an importer. How does it work? What's the mechanism by which you're reaching your customers?
My company does both. We import wines and we wholesale wines as well.
Where did you grow up?
I grew up in New York City.
Okay. And your parents?
My parents, we came over, we were immigrants, we're Russian immigrants. So I was born in Moscow. My dad drove a cab. My mom was a stay-at-home mom.
So when did they move over?
We came over in 1974.
And how old were you then?
About a year old.
Right, okay. And did you have wine at the table in the family home or not?
No wine at the table. Wine came later. Wine came about the time about college, where most people get introduced to new things in their lives. And I went to college with a few folks who were interested in wine, and we all attended the same wine classes. I got to go to my first wine class at Windows in the World with Kevin Zrilli. And after a few more wine classes, I eventually entered the restaurant business, and I got invited by my first wine director, Master Sommelier Roger DeGorn, to a tasting with his front of house team. And I was a pastry chef at the time, and they were tasting wine and swirling the wine and pulling out all these wonderful flavors in wine. And I was still nosing the wine and saying, oh, it smells like wine. And that made me realize I needed to go study a little bit more.
So how did your love for Italian wine in particular develop? Obviously, when you were studying, I'm guessing you were getting like mainly French wine, maybe some Californian wine.
Started with French wine and California wine. I guess because I was so young, I couldn't afford the good stuff. So when I finally was able to afford something delicious, and it happened to be Italian, it just love at first sight.
Where was the love coming from?
I think as a young wine drinker, the wines that I had selected at that particular day just, like I said, pushed the right buttons. With Amarone, you have luscious texture that a lot of new wine drinkers are often seeking, and tension. Aglianico specifically has this wonderful tension of sometimes ripe flavors undercut by this nervous acidity that grounds the wine, and it makes you think a little bit more than you might otherwise. So the wines aren't necessarily simple. There's always counterpoint, and this counterpoint, this tension, is very, very intrinsic to a lot of Italian wines. And I think when people taste Italian wine for the first time, they stop to think a little bit because they've never experienced a sensation like that.
So that combination of lovely, juicy, ripe fruit and that sort of tight backbone to the wine, which makes the wines great with food, right?
In the case of Amarone at that moment, it achieved something that I'd never experienced before.
Amazing. You got a real conversion.
Immediate. And then, at that same time, there was a change in Italian gastronomy in New York. That was the time that Mario Batali was just started becoming famous in New York and changing the scope of Italian wine, changing the reach of Italian wine, and what he's achieved in the last 15 years speaks for itself.
So what do you mean by making it a bit more ambitious, or making things more simple, more easier for people to understand, just normal consumers?
I think it moved Italian wine away from red checker tablecloths and straw flask Chianti to a more regional Italian wine, and especially his cooking was a very lusty cooking. It involved a lot of braising, a lot of that quinto quarto movement, I think, that begins with Mario Batali in New York. And we caught on to that. Once you taste Italian food that's like that, you start wondering about what is this other Italian food that I'd never heard about. And then you start understanding, or at least exploring, regionality in Italian food. And it's the regionality in Italian wine that makes it so special. And that's whenever I teach about Italian wine, people ask me, well, what is Italian wine? Well, Italian wine is not one thing. If you want to make it simple, you start by talking about 20 different things in 20 different regions. And there are people who've come along the way who've sent that same message. I think it begins with Waverly Root. I think he wrote his first book in 1950s, Food and Wine of Italy. David Lynch followed in those footsteps with Joe Bastianich writing Vino Italiano. And they broke down Italy into 20 regions that just by reading the book, everybody wanted to visit and read and drink those wines rather. And I was one of those people. And, now comes Ian D'Agata, who's written the manual for the next generation of wine lovers. So sure, we have the internet now. We have a lot more information. We, as wine lovers and food lovers, understand about the 20 regions of Italy. And now we're really starting to celebrate the true Italian patrimony, which is its native varieties. So I think that as the end consumer has evolved, there's been a need for deeper exploration and a celebration and a protection of what Italy does best when it comes to food and wine.
Wow, what a great enthusiasm and knowledge also of Italian wine. I have to come to one of your Italian wine classes. I mean, the people that turn up, are they curious? They just listen to you, or do they ask questions about Italian wine? Hey, listen, I didn't understand what you said there about Primitivo or about Garganigo. Or
I haven't taught specifically about Italian wine. It's a separate story, but the conversations, the education has to be interactive because otherwise it's just a lecture and it's never fun.
Okay, so when you started out at college, when you were a teenager, did you ever think you'd end up in the wine business as you are today?
I was a career changer, so no. I didn't know what I wanted to do. When I went to college, I thought I wanted to do, quote, business, end quote, and I had no idea what that business was going to be. I thought I wanted to, as an immigrant, I was pushed, encouraged to go out and do something that was going to make a good living for myself. So I never really got to thinking about what I wanted to do. And sometimes I still think about what I want to do, but I think that at this point in my career, I want to do something to honor, one, the passions that I have, but also to honor the people that have gotten me to where I am, and to celebrate the things that I enjoy in my life. And I think to give back to the Italian wine community that's really embraced me with open arms is a great way to do it. We tried to set out on this journey 5 years ago when my wife and I first left New York to travel into Italy, to try and look for that opportunity. It didn't come around at the time, but there's certainly a relationship, and I spoke about it earlier on with the graduates here. The Italian wine producers are unique in the world, from my experience, in that they embrace you with open arms. They let you into their lives, and once that happens, you don't let go of that, and you become a member of the Italian wine community for life.
Henry Davar, you're considered a fully paid up member. Been great to talk to you. Thank you very much for coming today.
It's been a great pleasure. Thank you so much.
Follow us at Italian Wine Podcast on Facebook.